Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Koski of Fun Day, back at it once again. And this one, we looking at Black Europe. You know, maybe you don't understand that, African people or Afroquoid people, whatever you want to call it, was there in Europe way before there was even any Caucasians. And this one story comes from Liberty Writers of Africa. Ireland was first inhabited by an African tribe known as the Twa, but have now disappeared. This came out March 26, 2019. There is common knowledge of Africans being the first humans on Earth. Many people have heard this in passing, but do not believe it to be true. This is due to the fact that history has been altered and taught wrongly. The oldest human remains found by archaeologists is that of a Negro brown black person. This helps to buttress the fact that Africans created a civilization, and that various African tribes inherit various regions of the earth outside of the motherland Africa. One such people is the Twa tribe of Africa, who were the first people to live in Ireland. They are also referred to as the Akan by other African tribes, and the Leprechauns by Europeans. The name Leprechauns comes from the Old Irish lepropon, which is a compound name composed of small and coarse meaning body. The Twa practiced matriarchy. They buried their great black mother and had women as leaders of their tribe. There have been many tales told about the leprechauns and their magical powers. Many people believed them to be fairy tales, but in reality, they existed. The Twa were diminutive little men and women who grew in height to be 4'11". They were skilled craftsmen who migrated from Africa into Ireland, maybe thousands of years ago. They had advanced knowledge of medicine, metallurgy, textile, and clothing manufacturing. They were also excellent in shoemaking, which the Caucasians at the time and human existence thought was magical. The existence of the Twa people has been confirmed by various authorities in history and archaeology. British Egyptologist Gerald Massey and Edward Churchworth, the Scottish historian David McRitchie, and the British antiquarian Godfrey Higgins have carried extensive research on this topic and have shed light on the Twa people. Many writers, the likes of Tacitus, Pinckney, and Claudian, and others, describe the blacks they encountered in the British Islands, Ireland, as black as Ethiopians, Camus Nigris Garis, nimble-footed blackamoors, and so on. Historians that count upon lessons, Formotions, the Nemedis, the Furbolgs, and the Tuatha Mellons of Ireland and the Picts in northern Scotland were all black. Also, the Furbolg, who also believe in a section of the Nemedes, are believed to be the Twa. They are described by historians as the dwarf, dark elves, or leprechauns in Irish history. In his book entitled Ancient and Modern Britain, David McRitchie stated the wild tribes of Ireland were black men, is hinted by the fact that the wild Irishman is in Gaelic a black Irishman, a dub or a renton. The word dub in Gaelic is black. How they disappeared or were chased out of Ireland. Just like many parts of the world throughout history, there are accounts of Europeans committing, eliminating, or going to war with African tribes. Entire tribes have been decimated or wiped out over the course of human history. One such is the disappearance of the Twa, likely caused by the Caucasian Irish people who later came to Ireland. Although this account of history is not widespread, many believe that the Irish celebration of St. Patrick, chasing out the snakes from Ireland, was actually the hunting down of Twa people. The story and the reason for an Irish holiday is actually an allegory, that a story, poem, or picture that can be interpreted to reveal a hidden meaning, typically a moral or political one. According to the Irish, and now the world legend, back in the 5th century AD, St. Patrick exterminated Ireland snakes by driving them all into the sea. The Irish and the Christian make it sound like they were saving Caucasian people from a real deadly snake, but that is actually false. The truth is, there is no evidence that points to the existence of serpents in Ireland. Ireland never had snakes, probably for the same reason there is no snakes in Iceland, Hawaii, New Zealand, Greenland, or Antarctica. Ireland was once connected to a larger landmass during the Ice Age, but the land was far too cold for any cold-blooded reptiles to survive. Ireland became colder when the glaciers melted around 10,000 years ago, pouring more cold water into the impassable expanses between Ireland and its neighbors. Other animals like wild boars, lynx, and brown bears managed to make it across. Also, only a single reptile, the common lizard, was able to make it. Snakes, however, missed their chance to survive in Ireland. So there was no way St. Patrick could have chased snakes into the sea with his religious powers. The Twa people are the snakes he chased out and killed. The Twa people, just like many African tribes, were wise just like serpents. The Twa, just like many ancient African tribes, were also referred to as Nagas, or Niggas, which loosely means serpent people or people of the serpent. Anyone concerned with African history will recall the names that are synonymous to the pharaohs and the kings. In many African cultures and religions, the serpent is not a symbol of evil, but eternal life, regeneration, power, protection, and wisdom. The allegory of the serpents is clearly pointed to the Twa people, and it's safe to say that St. Patrick was mostly a warlord and was celebrated for his role in eliminating and chasing the Twa people into the sea where they met their death. Below are some passages of books from historians and writers on the existence of the Twa people, and many like them. The Journal of the Royal Institution of Cornwall, Index 1907 to 1977. Page 280. I believe the first human beings entered Cornwall during the Neolithic period belonged to a race of dwarf or pygmies, and were very little people. The study of the dwarf races is a new branch of anthropology, and has wonderfully developed in the last 20 years. Ancient classical authors, mentioning pygmies, lived in the remote parts of Asia and Africa, and the conflicts of their wills, wings, and their names in an amazing language. These stories were long thought to be childish inventions, but recent discoveries have proved they were perfectly correct. When the Dutch occupied South Africa, they met the dwarf Bushmen, who were the smallest pygmies in the world. When the Spanish became acquainted with the Erudites in the Mazana, the dwarf race of the Philippine Islands, and the Europeans long before the discovered the dwarfs in the Andaman Islands, who were known as many copies. In Africa, new dwarf tribes are constantly being found, such as Selkos by Dr. Count and Abaros by M.D. Duan. Swineford in 1879 discovered pygmies, Dakotas, in the heart of Central Africa. Since then, many writers, Sir H. M. Stanley and Sir Harry Johnson, have described the pygmies and the dwarfs in the Congo forest and in the Uganda Protectorate. It is now held by many anthropologists that a number of dwarf races were found in the earliest human existence of Central Africa. Mr. R. G. Halliburton has traced these pygmy races into Morocco and Spain long ago. Jacob Graham concluded that the tradition of the elves, gnomes, and trolls current in Germany that the dwarf races inhabit Central Europe in prehistoric times. And Professor Nielsen has came to the same conclusion regarding Scandinavia. 10 years ago, Dr. Navy found that the bones of a pygmy in a never-had spot near Schaffhausen, which are smaller than the dwarfs of the elements. Professor Sergei Antoninus in the Neolithic period in Germany. The last named anthropologist declared that he had found the bones of the pygmy in a cave called La Grotte de Fres in the department of Seine-de-Marne in France. He also, as far as Switzerland concerned, the professor dispensed that the tradition of the Alps were the pygmies, who were forced to take refuge in the mountains by their taller inhabitants. This book goes on and on about that. Here's another book, The Riddles of Prehistoric Times by James Anderson, 1911. Just reading the red line. The Iberians in ancient time inhabit western and southern part of Europe, and the northern part of Africa. In fact, all parts of the Mediterranean Sea. The Basques in France and Spain and France, the little dark Welshmen, the Scots, and the black celts to the west of the Shannon River in Ireland, as well as the same kind of man in Brittany and Escagne in France. The Gunshin and the Canary Islands and the Barbers of Africa are all probably remnants of the same race. The first inhabitants of southern Europe, northern Africa, Arabia, France, and Britain Islands were a race of small men who do not average a height more than 4 feet 5 inches. They were slight build and dark complexion. They were quality lovers and emanations from Lemuria. So he say. They would first bury their dead in caves, and when the caves are not available, they placed their dead in long heroine graves in a row. Such of the heroes were 400 feet long and 50 feet wide. They were an African people, and there appeared evidence that they sometimes practiced cannibalism. It is said that the first people on our island were Formoseans. They were dark, stunted race, utterly savage, using rough and unwashed stone implements. So far as that can be learned, they did not know how to use fire. It is said they came from Africa on ships. How the hell, just a sidebar right quick, how the hell you don't know how to use fire, but you know how to do ships? You know what I'm saying? Anyway, back to the thing. It was seen that some period in the past land of Europe was a higher elevation than at present, and at the present bed of the Straits of Dover and a large part of the northern Baltic Sea in the channel was, and it cuts off. But that book is from The Riddles of Prehistoric Times by James Anderson, 1911. You know, just passed recently with St. Patrick's Day, and we gotta stop celebrating with our enemies. You know, they don't like us like that. You feel me? They do not care for black people like that worldwide. You know, but y'all should read stuff like that. I got a lot of stuff in the British Journal Society, and I should crack more into that. You know, the Journal of Royal Institution of Cornwalls, I got stuff from there too. And we need to crack more into that about Black Europe. Anyway, hit the like button. This is Iskosi, a fun day. Much love to you and yours. You know, we keep on doing it real big. Hey, subscribe to the channel. Peace.